The palace thought they had finally escaped Meghan Markle's chaos until Geneva happened. One shocking press release, one mysterious co-host claim, and suddenly the Duchess, who walked away from royal duty, was positioning herself beside the World Health Organization like she belonged at the center of a global summit. But behind the glamorous photos and polished headlines, insiders are whispering something explosive. Meghan may have forced her way into the room using Prince Harry's name as the golden key, then left him behind the second the doors opened. And now, people inside royal circles are asking the same dangerous question. Was this humanitarian work or the most calculated publicity stunt yet?
Meghan has booked herself a solo trip to Switzerland to stand on a Geneva plaza alongside the Director General of the World Health Organization. The husband is staying behind in Montecito with the children. The wife is flying alone to a United Nations square.
Meghan Markle shocked royal watchers when her team suddenly announced that Archewell Philanthropies would supposedly co-host an event connected to the 79th World Health Assembly alongside the World Health Organization. The wording sounded massive, historic, powerful. It framed Meghan not as a guest, not as an attendee, but almost like a global authority standing shoulder to shoulder with one of the world's most recognized health institutions. There was only one tiny little issue buried beneath the glamorous headlines. Archewell Philanthropies does not legally exist in the way the public was led to believe. The trademark was reportedly still in processing stages. No official foundation registration, no formal company structure, nothing solid. Yet somehow Meghan's press machine blasted the phrase co-hosting across media outlets as if she had become a diplomatic power player overnight. And when people checked the official Who materials, silence. Total silence. No Archewell mention. No Meghan partnership announcement. No recognition of any official role whatsoever. It was as if her entire status had been manufactured through pure audacity. That is where this story starts becoming deeply uncomfortable. Because according to sources discussing the situation, Meghan allegedly did not arrive in Geneva through ordinary channels. She reportedly pursued access aggressively behind the scenes, repeatedly emailing WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus until the situation became impossible to ignore. And here's where the whispers become explosive. Sources claim those emails allegedly used Prince Harry's name strategically, suggesting the Duke and Duchess would appear together. Suddenly, the invitation carried royal gravity. Suddenly, it looked like the son of King Charles himself might attend. That changes everything. Harry's title still opens doors Meghan alone cannot. That's the ugly truth nobody wants to say publicly. And then came the twist that made insiders furious. Once access was secured, Harry disappeared. He stayed home in Montecito while Meghan flew to Geneva solo, accompanied instead by longtime associate Marcus Anderson. Critics immediately began accusing her of a bait-and-switch operation. Use Harry's royal connection to gain entry, then pivot the spotlight directly onto herself. Royal commentators said this pattern has become painfully familiar. Harry's credibility opens the gate. Meghan walks through it alone. His title creates legitimacy. Her image becomes the final product. What makes the timing look even worse is that this happened immediately after Princess Catherine's triumphant Italy tour. Catherine had just returned to international royal duties after cancer treatment, receiving overwhelming praise worldwide. The images coming out of Italy were emotional, elegant, authentic. Crowds adored her. European media celebrated her resilience. She looked calm, dignified, genuinely connected to the children and educators she visited. And then suddenly, almost instantly, Meghan appears in Geneva attached to a giant global summit with dramatic headlines suggesting major humanitarian importance. Royal watchers noticed the pattern immediately. Every time William and Catherine dominate headlines positively, something erupts from Montecito attempting to redirect attention. According to insiders, Catherine's Italy visit had been planned years in advance before her illness postponed it. It was earned through long-standing royal relationships and genuine charitable work. Meghan's Geneva appearance allegedly happened through relentless persistence at the last possible moment. That contrast is what has palace insiders grinding their teeth. One woman builds institutional trust over years. The other allegedly floods inboxes until someone gives in. The deeper people dig into this Geneva situation, the uglier the entire picture starts looking. Because once Meghan secured access to the World Health Assembly, the narrative immediately became larger than the actual event itself. Suddenly, headlines were no longer about global health policy or the families grieving children lost to online harm. No, the spotlight shifted exactly where critics predicted it would, directly onto Meghan Markle. The cameras followed her. The fashion analysis exploded online. The body language video started circulating within hours. hours, and royal commentators were left asking the same brutal question. Was this really about protecting children, or was it about Meghan rebuilding the global status she lost after leaving the royal family? The memorial installation itself was heartbreaking. 50 illuminated boxes displaying the final lock screen images of children whose lives were connected to online harm. Real families, real tragedy, real grief. This should have been a solemn, deeply emotional moment focused entirely on awareness and prevention. But critics immediately accused Meghan of turning the setting into another carefully staged image campaign, because that's the pattern people believe they keep seeing. Every humanitarian platform slowly becomes a backdrop for Sussex branding. Every charity appearance somehow circles back to Meghan herself. Even the photographs coming out of Geneva felt heavily curated, polished almost too perfectly, as if the emotional weight of the memorial had become secondary to creating iconic images for international media circulation. And here's where the hypocrisy accusations became absolutely explosive. Meghan was attending an event centered around online safety for children while simultaneously facing criticism for heavily publicizing Archie and Lilibet online herself. Royal commentators pointed out the contradiction instantly. The same woman warning about digital harm has repeatedly shared carefully crafted glimpses of her children across media campaigns and social platforms. Critics argue she is creating the exact kind of permanent digital footprint she publicly claims to oppose. That contradiction hung over the entire Geneva appearance like a storm cloud nobody inside her camp could fully explain away. Meanwhile, Prince Harry's absence became impossible to ignore, because if this summit truly centered around online harm, technology safety, and mental health, Harry should have been front and center. He is the one who testified publicly about social media dangers. He is the one who repeatedly linked online harassment to Princess Diana's death. He is supposedly the architect of many of their digital safety initiatives. Yet, when the actual moment arrived, Meghan boarded the plane while Harry stayed home in California. That single detail fueled an avalanche of speculation about the true power dynamics inside their marriage. Critics say Harry increasingly looks less like an equal partner and more like a royal access card Meghan swipes whenever she needs elite credibility. And then came another layer of palace tension that made insiders deeply uncomfortable. Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, was also attending the World Health Assembly in an official royal capacity. Suddenly, the optics became dangerous. Two duchesses, same international summit. One a working royal representing the monarchy officially, the other a former working royal accused of forcing her way into the event through persistence and strategic pressure. Buckingham Palace usually avoids these collisions carefully. They manage calendars obsessively to prevent awkward overlaps and competing headlines. So royal watchers immediately began asking whether palace officials quietly knew Meghan would appear in Geneva ahead of time. And if they did know, did King Charles allow it intentionally? That theory has become one of the most controversial whispers surrounding this entire mess. Some insiders believe the palace may occasionally permit limited Sussex visibility simply to keep Harry and Meghan from launching another public attack campaign against the monarchy. In other words, controlled relevance, small moments, small stages, just enough to keep the California branch occupied. Because history has shown what happens when the Sussexes feel completely frozen out. Interviews happen, documentary accusations appear, family secrets suddenly become streaming content. So some commentators believe the monarchy occasionally throws tiny scraps of access their way to prevent a much larger explosion later. But if that strategy exists, Geneva proved exactly why it is so risky. Because Meghan allegedly took whatever limited participation she secured and inflated it into co-hosting language that made her sound equal to the World Health Organization itself. That is the central accusation destroying trust around her appearances now. Every inch becomes a mile. Every invitation becomes self-promotion. Every accommodation becomes evidence in her mind that she belongs at the center of the institution rather than standing beside it. The comparison to Catherine only made Meghan's situation look worse. Catherine does not chase invitations publicly. She does not bombard organizations with aggressive networking campaigns. She does not need to attach herself to institutions using carefully worded press releases. Her influence feels effortless because it comes from the monarchy itself. When Catherine carried an Asprey handbag during her Italy tour, the brand sold out instantly worldwide without her even promoting it. No paid partnership, no calculated influencer rollout, just authentic royal association. And according to commentators, Meghan's camp reportedly studies these moments obsessively, trying to understand why Catherine generates loyalty so naturally while Meghan's attempts often feel forced. The answer may be devastatingly simple. One woman still represents an institution institution people trust. The other walked away from it and has spent years trying to recreate its power artificially. That is what makes Geneva feel so symbolic. Meghan once possessed genuine royal access automatically. Global invitations would have arrived without begging. World leaders would have welcomed her formally. Elite institutions would have partnered openly. But she rejected the structure that came with that privilege. Now, critics say she spends enormous energy trying to simulate the same prestige independently, often through aggressive branding, strategic PR wording, and relentless visibility campaigns. Geneva looked less like a humanitarian triumph and more like someone desperately trying to prove she still belongs on the world stage. And perhaps the most revealing part of all this is the silence surrounding the truth. Dr. Tedros reportedly knows exactly how this unfolded. Palace insiders allegedly know more than they will ever admit publicly. WHO officials likely understand the co-hosting language exaggerated reality enormously, yet nobody steps forward to correct it because Meghan's greatest advantage is chaos itself. Confronting her publicly creates headlines institutions fear even more than the exaggeration. So silence wins, and in that silence, her version becomes reality.